This printer's cheaper than the one you have, and it probably prints hotter too. Today we've got the Elegoo Centauri Carbon, the machine that came out of nowhere and totally undercut everybody with its high performance and its super low cost, its sleek metal design, its wide array of material offerings, but most importantly the super favorable price. The thing's only $300, dude. You like that? I like that. Do I buy 7 Centauri Carbons or 1 H2D? So today we're gonna do a little bit of unboxing and setup. From there I'll move on to printing some stuff, and then I'll cover some of the issues that you might come across if you pick one of these suckers up as well. So come along for the ride and uncover a world of affordability. Alright, let's start with the unboxing and stuff. If you watch any of my videos, you're familiar with this setup. The printer's super well packaged with foam and plastic everywhere. Like usual, it's easier to put the box on the floor and then grab the plastic to yank the printer out the top. From there, we begin removing plastic and taking foam out of the machine. Typically, we'd find a multicolor box inside of here, but in this case, there's not a multicolor box available for this machine just yet. Apparently, there's one coming, but like, there's a lot of multicolor units coming, just trust me, bro. But inside the printer we find the toolkit that comes with the usual assortment. Got the lubricating grease, we got the worthless sample filament, glue stick, Allen wrenches, spool holder, and the filament runout sensor. The filament runout sensor and the spool holder go on the right-hand side of the machine, and honestly that makes up the bulk of the assembly, if you can even call that assembly. From there, along with the screen and the build plate, you kinda have everything. That's the extent of the components for this machine. The screen goes on the front, and the semi-fragile, kinda fiddly ribbon cable's a little bit difficult to get plugged into the screen, especially if you got shaky hands like I do. They're actually not too bad right now. Could be better. But the build plate's two-sided, so that's cool. One side's coarse, one side's smooth. Oddly enough, the coarse side is recommended not only for PLA and PETG, but they also say TPU on the coarse side. In the past, I've printed TPU on smooth plates, like the BIQU blue cryo grip ones, and had much better results than like standard coarse PEI coated plates, for example. But we'll try it their way later on in the video, and we'll see how all that goes. Don't you worry. But I like that they gave us a dual-sided plate standard. This machine's geared towards crazy high-performance materials, but more often, users are simply printing like PLA and regular low-temp stuff. Unless you're the one person commenting right now just because I've said that and it's triggered you to let the world know that you do in fact only print the hottest materials with the most abrasive composites added to them all the time, except for you. We know that you print all the hard stuff always. I print a lot of PLA and you're much cooler than me, I get it. But if you are presenting a machine that's geared towards high performance materials, it's helpful that you ship it with a bed that can take the high performance materials instead of just the PLA bed. My goodness. Otherwise, that's about the extent of the unbox. The bed's secured to the machine with screws that you have to remove before you turn the thing on. The tool head's held in with zip ties and cardboard, just like we've seen on all the other machines of this form factor. With all that removed, you can power it on and the machine goes through its different checks and calibrations after you input your Wi-Fi credentials if you want to go through that, and you set your language to English and all the other things that we always do whenever we open one of these machines up. And that's good. This is standard kit now. A couple years ago that wasn't. So I like that. Starting right off, I wanted to burn some PLA to validate this machine a little bit. I had a lot of this Overture light blue sitting around, so I wanted to consolidate my several spools into one printed model. I used this ambulance model because my kid loves these vehicle prints that I do for him. So I loaded it up, scaled the model as much as I could inside of the build volume, and sent it to print. know what? It turned out super well. The layers are stacked super well. The small details turned out super crisp, even though it's a really coarse 0.28 layer height. And really, there's not any defects to speak of across the whole model. There is, however, a little bit of evidence of ringing present, which we've seen on machines like the Creality High and the Anycubic Kobra S1 recently. Nevertheless, this gave me the confidence I needed to press on by validating the machine a little bit more and fulfill some of my Etsy orders. I make a lot of these door stops, and a customer ordered one in this light blue just after I finished this print, so I sent that to the printer to continue validating the machine and make sure the thing doesn't suck. Because it's only $300. There's no way this machine's good, right? Again, the print turned out super well without a blemish to speak of. So an interesting thing happened while I was recording this video. I printed out that light blue doorstop and then I didn't get any footage of it during printing or after printing. So you're gonna have to take my word for it that it was pretty good. I also need to tell you that we're giving away a printer. Go subscribe to our new channel. It's called You Like That. I'll put it in the description and maybe pin a comment. We're gonna be doing challenges against each other. It's a little bit different than the content you get on this channel, but if you like this channel, you'll probably like that channel. You like that? Yeah, you do. Anyway, we're gonna give away a free printer. The first video will drop after we hit 1,000 subscribers. In that video, I'm gonna talk about what printer we're giving away and what you need to do to get it. You're not gonna have to like buy merch or anything. We don't have merch yet, but we're thinking about getting merch. But it's not gonna be anything like that. It's just gonna be like, comment here or post here or something. I haven't decided yet, but you want a printer, you could win a printer. Subscribe to You Like That. Pay attention to the first video. We still got a lot of editing to do on it, so like, I guess if you don't subscribe, it's okay, because I need some time. Yeah. So that was enough to tell me the machine's working well enough and I didn't mess it up by putting it together wrong or something. So it was time to move on a little bit. Time to step it up ever so slightly. But before we jump into some other materials and the infuriating issues that came up using those materials, I need to thank PCBWay for sponsoring today's video. If you need any 3D printing, PCB manufacturing, sheet metal fabrication, or CNC milling done, check out PCBWay because they can do it all, baby. Their services are excellent and it makes advanced processes immediately available for the regular consumer like you or me. If you suddenly need to 3D print something crazy out of metal, for example, PCBWay can do that. If you're a smart individual, not me, and you can design and implement PCBs that you've custom made, for example, PCBWay can help with that. And this just in, multicolor FDM printing. That's right, full multicolor. You don't even need a printer. Just like that, your idea has gone from a digital thing to a real-life product in a couple of days. Support the brands that support this channel if you're interested in what we do here. Thank you to PCBWay for sponsoring this video. Check the link in the description if you want to learn more about this great service. Now let's get back to the video. Let's move on to the squishy stuff. I threw this pink TPU from Overture at the old girl to see how it would print. Now I kept this stored in a Polymaker dry box and I didn't dry the filament because it was stored in that dry box. And it makes it an easy way to print the material without having to break the seal, so we just printed from that dry box it had been stored in. My wife wanted me to check out this tessellation print, so I sent that in this pink TPU. Now the model printed successfully, but I wasn't super impressed with the results. The model's really cool, but the quality of the print left a little bit to be desired. There's a bunch of stringing and lots of buildup in general. Now TPU, it'll do that, but this isn't some Creality machine. We're not settling for subpar prints here. I figured my spool of TPU needed dried out or something. So I hooked up a poly dryer, ran a full dry cycle, and then I tried the print again on the machine, but with my freshly dried pink TPU. At this point, I also considered flipping the plate over to the smooth side, even though it says the coarse side is for TPU, but the coarse side was really difficult to remove the TPU from. But for some reason, I just kept it on the coarse side, even though it was difficult. I don't know. I should have flipped it over to the smooth side to see how that would do. But anyway, I sent the print to the machine again. The TPU was dry. This was going to be its best bet for printing this thing well. Wouldn't you know it, the same thing happened. The print stuck super hard to the coarse build plate, and the quality was just as bad as before. The stringing was over the top, and the top surfaces weren't even filled in properly. So to check my work a little bit, I decided to load the same filament that has just been dried and just printed poorly on this machine into my A1 Mini that we had just recently finished upgrading. Now these machines are wildly different, so it's not an apples to apples comparison or a competition between the two. I just wanted a frame of reference on a different machine. And I had this nice little smooth blue build plate so I could make sure the TPU wasn't going to stick too hard to the print bed. It's a good thing I completely forgot to use that smooth blue build plate and just used the standard one that is stuck to really hard. But after wrestling the model off of the standard build plate, this was the result. The print was excellent, and it fully displayed what I expected this machine to deliver. No strings, no buildup, just a clean, crisp model. Ultimately, this isn't the fault of the Centauri Carbon. Anyone can tune the profiles in that come default with these machines, and then you can get a much better result. I simply choose not to do this for two reasons. When I do these reviews, I want to see what a brand new user is going to experience when they open one of these machines and use the default settings, for example. And I'm lazy. But more importantly, manufacturers, especially manufacturers that make filament and machines, should have all these profiles dialed in. There's no reason. Perhaps using a spool of Elegoo TPU would have made a difference. Unfortunately, I didn't have one sitting around, so let me know in the comments if you get better results using Elegoo TPU with your Elegoo machine. But let's talk about some of the issues I've had right off the bat with this machine before we move on to a couple of other filaments. So with the hours that I've run on this machine so far, there's only a couple of things that I don't really like. The first thing is this routing of the Bowden tube. A lot of people have noted this issue in their reviews and stuff, and I'm having the same issue. So this tube makes a super sharp turn before it leads into the tool head, and it's not something that just makes it difficult to load filament. There's cases where it just makes it impossible for me to load the filament. Like, I can't. I think I only loaded it properly with the tube in place like a few times before finally just yanking it out of the cable chain and routing it over the top so I wouldn't have to deal with this every single filament change. But another issue I've run into just a couple of times so far is maybe intermittency with the firmware, I guess, is the only way to describe it. Maybe it's just the UI, I don't know. There's just sometimes that some of the parts of the screen or buttons on the screen or features of the screen just don't work. I mostly see this at the end of prints or when I'm trying to load and unload filament, for example. Like at the end of a print, I've had several times where the machine won't accept a new print until I go to the screen and push OK or cancel or clear or whatever it prompts me with. So hours will go by, I think the machine's printing because I've cleared the plate but I didn't push OK on the screen. Send a print wirelessly and it never starts. But the real bummer is when it doesn't let you load filament. For whatever reason one time, I just had the load and unload buttons grayed out, so I couldn't go through the proper loading or unloading procedure. I tried letting the machine cool off, I tried turning it off and on again, nothing seemed to fix it. So finally, I just heated up the extruder manually and then pushed the filament in by hand. That ended up fixing itself after a few days, but otherwise I've had a really good experience with the machine so far. And honestly, the thing's only $300. I don't know if I've mentioned that, but these are issues we can overlook for $300. Now let's move on to PETG and see if we can keep this trend of good results going, because surely we're not going to encounter any kind of friction or issues or anything with the machine printing PETG, which is a simple material, right? right? For PETG testing, I wanted to try a couple of different brands. My first model was this police car that my kid requested. He said it needed to be green and it needed to have wheels that moved. Luckily, Sunlu sent me over a couple of rolls of their PETG and one of them was green. In fact, it's this cool translucent green, so I loaded that up, scaled the model as big as the build plate would allow, and let this print go. It was gonna take like a day and a half no matter what, but after messing with the infill values and stuff, I kept the total print volume under one roll of filament. I only had one spool of this translucent green, so it needed to be under one roll of filament. And my goodness, guys, this turned out so good. This was the best print that we'd had so far. I cannot overstate how well this translucent PETG printed on this machine with default settings. It just looks so good. The surfaces are smooth and properly filled in. All the small details were replicated super well, even with a 0.28 layer height again. There aren't any blemishes. The ringing isn't even all that bad like we saw on some of the other models. Again, this thing's super impressive. This is a good printer. Surely we're not going to run into any other issues, right? Well, first I want to talk about the best feature of this machine that I haven't even gotten close to touching on yet, and it has to do with the slicer. So if you're looking for the Elegoo Slicer, it might take you a little bit more digging than you'd expect to find it. The only results that came up whenever I was searching for an Elegoo Slicer were like the resin slicers, and that's not what I wanted. I don't think I have the money or the patience to ever get into resin. I don't think on this channel we're ever gonna see a resin printer. I think it's just too much to mess with. And I think I'm not the guy for it. Maybe if somebody sent me one, somebody would really have to like send me one for free and pay me a lot to even investigate resin printing. And even then, I think even if I was making a video, I just probably wouldn't like it. I'd tell you guys that I don't like it. I think that's what resin printing would be. But after searching for a bit, I finally found the slicer. Now, I downloaded it. It's just reskinned Orca Slicer like every slicer is, and I went to slice a print and send it wirelessly. Now let's talk about wireless printing briefly here. I know there's some of you that want to stay totally unplugged with these machines. You don't want them on your network. You don't want to send things wirelessly. I get it. You don't want to introduce a vulnerability into your system. I get that. That's probably smart. I'm not that guy. I will usually err on the side of convenience instead of security because that's the scale. You get one or the other in most cases. Now, with my Wi-Fi credentials loaded onto this machine, this was the point where I realized something incredible. This printer's open enough that you just type in the IP address, and that's how the slicer communicates with it. No proprietary plug-in garbage, no special slicer needed. You can just put that IP address into Orca Slicer and send prints remotely. I can use this printer without having to use Elegoo's reskinned version of Orca. I can just use Orca Slicer. No need to download a blue version of the slicer that runs slower even though it's still Orca Slicer underneath all the blue. Anycubic. What an incredible concept. My goodness, why don't more printers offer this? My gosh. I just get so emotional. So at this point, I was about done with my preliminary testing. I typically try to put like 100 hours on a machine when I do a preliminary review like this. That's not enough to test for every situation, but typically that gives me enough of an intro into a machine to speak about it initially. And then from there, it's simply up to time with the machine to tell me if the thing's actually any good in the midterm or long term. Now, I was there with this machine. I typed up the whole script and was ready to record and everything. And then someone ordered one of these propane tank holders that I make and sell on Etsy. I print these out of PETG. I always print them out of black. It's just a one-color print, so it'd be a good opportunity to stretch the legs on this machine with another PETG model. So I threw in this black PETG and I sent the print. This is when things began to go poorly. For starters, the print didn't even finish. Like, the thing stopped at like 30 or 40% for no reason, didn't give me any error or anything, and it refused to resume. Didn't have a power outage, none of my other printers had issues, just this one stopped. I guess that's something that can happen. Sure, we'll call it a fluke and just try the print again, right? I loaded up the print again after re-slicing it just for the heck of it, and sent it. But before I did that, I inspected the print that was on the plate, and I noticed that the inner layer adhesion on this print was awful. Like, it was super bad. So I figured perhaps it was a heating issue, like maybe the nozzle temperature wasn't high enough to properly bond the layers. So I looked into the slicer, and the standard settings for Elegoo PETG was 240 degrees for the nozzle. I bumped that up to 255 when I re-sliced the thing and sent it again. Thankfully, the print actually finished this time, but my goodness, was the quality awful. Like, it was terrible. There was like loads of warping and split layers and stuff. The layer adhesion itself didn't seem to be changed at all by the upped temperature. Okay, so maybe this PETG just isn't any good, right? Maybe it's some no-name generic whatever, or it's a bad batch. Well, for the second time now, while I was testing this machine, I turned to a bamboo as kind of a control to see if the machine was bad or if there was something else bad. I loaded up the prints and this PETG into my X1 Carbon. Again, not an apples to apples comparison, but this would confirm if it was just a material issue. And you know what? The thing printed flawlessly. The model didn't spontaneously combust if you squeezed it a tiny bit. There was no layer adhesion issues or anything like that. No warping, no splitting, no cracking, nothing. It printed perfectly. Now that's weird because this is PETG, and the PETG that Sunlu sent over to us turned out super good. Of course, that model was a lot chunkier, so it wasn't something that I could squeeze to verify if the inner layer adhesion was good. But again, there wasn't any warping or cracking or anything. Honestly, I don't know what to make of this. This is a weird thing that I could not figure out. Maybe it's just a thin wall geometry that this machine doesn't like instead of a material problem, I guess. I don't know, it's just PETG though. I haven't gone hard with like composites or high temp stuff even. It's just basic PETG. So like if it's got issues with low temp PETG, do I want to put my expensive PPSCF through it? I don't know. Alright, so is this thing any good? Well, there's a couple of thoughts I have going back and forth in my head. First off, there's some issues that are super annoying to deal with, but like the thing's $300. So again, it's easy to overlook a lot of these issues. It's $300 and it can print PPSCF. Or your carbon fiber nylons, or like insert material here, it can print it all, it doesn't matter. What is going on in the 3D printing world where you can get a machine for $300 that can print any consumer filament? If this had a bigger build volume, the Qidi Plus 4 would like be out of commission. It would have no chance. As it stands, the Bamboo only has the multicolor system over this machine, otherwise spec-wise, what's the difference? Aside from reliability, which I had issues with during testing, I guess that's a big difference. This printer seriously has the power to disrupt the market in a big way, and I know a lot of people like to say, disrupt the market, disrupt the market. This has the potential at that price point, if it's made reliable, to disrupt the market. I guess it's going to depend on how this printer does moving forward, as well as the multicolor system if that ever comes out. If it does come out and it works super well, or as well as Elegoo plans for it to work, there's going to be a lot of manufacturers that are going to be in trouble, and they're going to have to get wise super quick to catch up, because $300 for all of these features? Come on. Bye.